Let me ask you something. Right now, quietly, in your own head, are you rich? If you're like almost everyone watching this, you just said no. And here's the strange part. In Canada, barely anyone calls themselves upper class. Ask people to place themselves on the ladder, and less than 2% will put their hand up and say, yes, that's me. I'm at the top. Everyone assumes the rich person is somebody else. Somebody one street over, one neighborhood up, one tax bracket ahead. But the data tells a very different story, because a lot of you watching this right now are far, far closer to the top of that ladder than you think. So let's actually climb it, rung by rung, using the real numbers from StatCan and the CRA for 2026. And by the time we reach the top, you'll know exactly where you stand. First, we have to clear up the single biggest trick in personal finance, the difference between the average and the median. The average, the mean, takes every dollar earned in the entire country and spreads it evenly across every single person. Sounds fair? It isn't. Because a small handful of enormous earners drag that number way, way up. Put one billionaire in a room of 100 teachers, and suddenly the average person in that room looks like a millionaire. Nobody in there actually got richer. The math just lied to you. The median is honest. The median is the person standing at the exact center of the line. Line up every earner in Canada from poorest to richest, walk to the middle, and tap that person on the shoulder. Half the country earns more than them, half earns less. That is the number that tells you about real life on a real street. So, where is the middle? In 2026, the median individual income in Canada sits at roughly $62,000. That is the true center of gravity for this country. Now watch what the skew does to the average. The mean individual income climbs all the way to around $85,000, dragged upward by the high earners clustered in the GTA and the Lower Mainland. The bank towers of downtown Toronto, the tech offices of Vancouver, a relatively small group of very large paychecks quietly pulling the average away from reality. And here is why this matters to you personally. If you earn $70,000 a year, you might lie awake, feeling like you're behind, like everyone else has it figured out, and you're falling short. You are not falling short. You are quietly out, earning more than half the working population of this entire country. You are already sitting above the middle of the ladder. Nobody ever sent you the memo. Now let's climb higher, into what we'll call the professional class. To crack the top 10% of individual earners in Canada, you need to bring in roughly $145,000 a year. And as a household, two incomes under one roof, the top 10% line sits at around $255,000. Now picture who this actually is, because it is probably not who you imagine. This is a tech manager married to a nurse in Oakville. It's two steady, respectable professional salaries in Calgary. On paper, on the cold hard StatCan tables, this couple sits in the top 10th of the entire country. 90% of Canadian households earn less than they do. And yet, they do not feel rich. Not even a little. Why? Because they are trapped in what we call the squeezed middle. Their mortgage renewed at over 5%, so a brutal slice of that income evaporates before it ever lands in the checking account. The Loblaws bill for a family of four climbs a little higher every single month. Childcare costs more than a second rent, so they stare at their bank balance on the 30th, watch it sitting at almost nothing, and quietly conclude that they must be completely ordinary. The latter says top 10%. The lifestyle says paycheck to paycheck. And the maddening truth is that both of those things are true at the very same time. Keep climbing, and the air gets thin very quickly. To reach the top 5% of individual earners, you're now looking at roughly $185,000 a year. And the top 1%, the number everyone loves to argue about at dinner parties, starts at around $320,000 for a single individual in 2026. Sit with that number for a second, because it's probably smaller than the picture in your head. This is not yachts and private jets and helicopters. The average income inside that top 1% club works out to about $600,000 a year. Comfortable? Absolutely. Life-changing? Yes. But this is the surgeon, the corporate lawyer, the engineering director. These are demanding jobs with alarm clocks, not inherited dynasties. And the taxman knows exactly where every one of them lives. In a province like Ontario, once you're standing in that top bracket, your combined federal and provincial marginal rate climbs past 53%. Read that again. More than half of every extra dollar earned goes straight to the CRA and the province. That is the ceiling of the income ladder, and it is a very heavily taxed ceiling. Now, the household version of rare territory. Put two high earners together under one roof, say a specialist doctor married to a senior lawyer, and as a couple, they comfortably sail past the household top 1% line of around $580,000. That is genuinely elite. That is a fraction of the country. But notice something. It is still built entirely on salaries. It is still just income. And income, as we are about to discover, is not remotely the same thing as wealth. Here is the single idea that changes this entire video. Income is a tap. Wealth is the lake. Income is simply what flows in this year. And here's the terrifying part. It can be shut off tomorrow with one email, one layoff, one restructuring. Wealth, your net worth, is the water you have actually collected and kept. Everything you own minus everything you owe. And the moment you understand that difference, the whole picture turns upside down. Consider two Canadians. The first is a high-earning professional renting a beautiful condo in downtown Toronto, enormous salary. But they own almost nothing. A HELOC balance here, a car loan there, a TFSA, and an RRSP. They keep swearing they'll finally top up next year. The second is a retired teacher living in a fully paid-off bungalow in Burnaby, getting by on a modest pension. On income alone, on the paycheck, the professional wins in a total landslide. But that Burnaby bungalow is now worth $3 million, and it is owned outright, free and clear. The retired teacher, with the tiny paycheck, is a genuine multimillionaire. The high earner, for all that glorious salary, has a net worth hovering near zero. The tap is absolutely roaring. The lake is bone dry. And this is the real, hidden story of Canadian wealth. The median household net worth in this country is roughly $520,000. But the majority of that, around 70% for the typical family, is locked in the bricks. It's the house. It's equity you cannot actually spend without selling the roof over your own head. Head out to British Columbia, and that median net worth climbs towards $775,000, almost entirely because of real estate. And for the households who really win the game, retirees who own their home and hold a workplace pension, the median net worth reaches around $1.4 million. The lesson is blunt. Canadians are not cash rich. Canadians are house rich. Now let's zoom all the way out, because perspective changes everything. Canada consistently ranks among the top 10 wealthiest nations on the entire planet, per person. And when you measure by median wealth, the middle household rather than the handful of billionaires, Canadians sit near the very top of the whole world. So here is the truth that almost nobody in this country actually feels. If you have a stable job and a primary residence in Canada, you are sitting comfortably inside the global top 3%, not the top 3% of your city. Not the top 3% of Canada, the top 3% of Earth. The neighbor you quietly envy would be envied, in turn, by billions of people. So why does absolutely none of this feel true? Because wealth is a moving target, and we always aim it at the wrong thing. We never compare ourselves to the StatCan tables. We compare ourselves to the renovated kitchen 4 doors down, to the neighbor's brand new SUV in the driveway, to the couple in Oakville who look like they have every single thing figured out. We benchmark ourselves against the one house on the street that's doing better. Never the median, never the country, and certainly never the world. And that, right there, is the trap. Because true wealth was never really about the number printed on your paycheck. True wealth is the gap. The gap between what you earn and what your ego insists you spend to keep up with the street. Close that gap, and a $62,000 earner can slowly, quietly build an entire lake. Ignore that gap. And a $300,000 earner can stay bone dry for the rest of their life. So, let's go back to where we started. Are you rich? Look at the ladder one more time. You just might be a whole lot closer to the top than the story in your head ever let you believe. If you learned something from this video, make sure to like and hit subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.